Hello, this is Dominic from the Jack and Dom Radio Show, a weekly sports radio program, and although we broadcast on professional hardware, we do record our show mostly on my laptop, and sometimes I don't press record right when we start. Some shows will start right in the middle of a topic. Regardless, this show is a work of love and passion for sports with raw and transparent opinions between the two of us. So I hope you all enjoy. WUPX 91.5 FM HD1 Marquette. This is the Jack and Dom Radio Show. Jack, how are you doing today?
I've been better, but hey, we're almost to the end of the semester, so it's something to be optimistic about.
Exactly. Yeah, I've been better as well. But a lot of some things to talk about. We might have a shorter show for today. I mean, most of the stuff that's been happening in the news has not been sports related, but that is for a different show. That being said, like as always, the opinions said in the show do not represent the opinions of this radio station or the university. And if you so choose, you're able to get the recording of the show, whether on Amazon Music, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. We are also now on social media, so if you so choose, you can currently find us on Twitter and Facebook. Just look up the Jack and Dom Radio Show. That being said, good evening, everyone. I know the first topic I want to talk about today is something close to my heart because this is something that I have been working on for many months. And it finally happened. So I was able to get the best players from our men's basketball intramural league and play against Michigan Tech's best intramural players and face off in a simple college basketball game. And so last Friday, we all carpooled to Houghton. I was wearing a suit and tie. Kind of wanted to cosplay as Coach Matt a little bit. Because he sometimes wears a suit. Sometimes he wears a jacket or something like that.
It was a great game, though, right?
It was a great game.
A significant bit.
We won, so we won 81-62. That's 19-point lead there, but
by Jordan's 31 points. Right?
Yeah. So, for those who don't know, Jordan Weber, he is one of the best intramural players you'll ever face against, but he's also one of the, I think, graduate assistants for the varsity team. He has a lot of experience, very good 3-point shooter. And you can even find him on the Michigan High School Athletic Association records page.
Wow, okay.
He broke the record for school for all-time 3-point shooting. He's a really good 3-point shooter. And it showed. He scored 31 points and 10 rebounds, while Taylor Croft scored 14 points and 12 rebounds. So we had two players that had two double-doubles. The people who recorded the stats for the game did not record assists. So we don't know if any of them got a triple-double.
That's a shame.
I know. Some of the stuff was kind of thrown together last second.
Okay.
But at least there were some people that were actually able to record the stats for the game. So I was able to put that on the men's club basketball webpage on the NMU Hub. You know how to access that. Sure. It's on there. But yeah, I can tell you the first half was very fast. We scored 40. It was 44-27, and in the first half, and then Tech did make a bunch of adjustments, especially on defense, but we were able to keep on pace with Tech. With a then total score of 81-62.
Right, pretty dominant lead though, I think.
Yeah, and about 20 people showed up.
It's always awesome to beat Tech, even in a more informal setting.
Sure, yeah.
Especially after the unfortunate results that were, what was that, February? March? January?
The
tournament?
The tournament, I believe, was in late February.
Sure, February. Okay.
Yeah,
after the disappointing results in February, we got a little bit.
Well, the Gilead, we beat them in the Gilead quarter or semifinal,
the one that
but we lost in the NCAA tournament.
Okay.
But yeah, I just like to say, to thank you for everyone who was involved, because there were moments where I thought this wasn't going to work out. Like I would have to cancel last second.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
congratulations for organizing.
Yeah.
That takes a lot of effort, commitment, and passion. Speaking of effort,
Sure.
commitment, and passion, one of the RAs in my hall, I'm sure, given you're the one who put this on the show sheet, you've probably got some people you know on the team too.
Okay.
NMU's Overwatch and Rainbow Six Siege teams are in their national championship games this evening, which will be streamed on Twitch at 8 and 9:30.
So if you choose, just go to, and it's twitch.tv/NMU esports.
Certainly super exciting. We could have a couple more banners in that room. After
I know.
the one from earlier this year. That was what game was that again?
That was for Rocket League.
Yeah, Rocket League.
And that was for our team last year. Just we didn't.
Right. So you got one last year. We're going to add two more.
Yeah,
Improving
hopefully.
the collection.
Mm-hmm.
So certainly exciting news there. I will not be tuning in because of the NBA playoffs and NHL playoffs. Which
That's
we'll be
fine.
referencing again in the future. But if you so choose, certainly an excellent opportunity that you could potentially tune into. You've got what I think is probably one of the most exciting segments we do. Is it yearly or every semester?
Every semester.
Okay, every semester. That's what I thought.
Because we do it's like State of the Union,
Right,
but
but
for
better.
State of Sports.
State of enemy.
State of Enemy Sports. We have our tier list.
And the whole part about this is, as per usual, we're going to do it where you make the tier list and do all the hard work, and I just get to critique where I think you're wrong.
Which is fine because this right now is not set in stone. So I'm not gonna.
Well, it's
I'm
not official either. It's just you and me yapping.
well, what I mean is, I'll go to that tier list website, maker website, and then final it, and then make a picture, and then post that. So before I post it,
it's not going to be happy with the comment I'm about to make.
well, before I post anything, I do want your input on this.
Especially if you post it on the show page,
Yes.
or if you tag me and say that I
Endorse it. Well, you have to. Yeah, I would.
Right. Okay. So let's start from the top.
Varsity women's soccer. So,
by the way, are we doing pluses and minuses or only letters? I like pluses and minuses.
You can include it plus or minus. It's just that on the tier list, it's just S, A, B, C, D, F.
That's fine.
But for the recording of the show, we can put a plus or minus.
Start from the top.
Well, for varsity women's soccer, doing very good in, if I recall correctly, very good in the regular season, but and then also won the Iliac tournament, a conference tournament. But then I think for a third year in a row, losing the first game in postseason. And just for note, if you want to be on the S tier, which means superb or superior tier,
right,
you have to make an impact in postseason.
It's not even just an impact. You have to win a game.
Something.
We can give you an S minus if you win a game, but you got to win a game.
I don't know about that.
I think so, because
how big is the tournament? Like if it's 64 teams, I think you should win like one or two games. Or
the
at least
reason
two or
I
three
say
games,
win one game is because for NMU, that's about the best we're going to do right now. When was the last time we had a sports team that won more than one? A major sports team?
We'll get to that later in the tier list.
Well, there are some, but I'm saying like the football, basketball, hockey, like the main three. It's been a while.
It's been a while.
So anyway, you've rated them an A.
An A, yes.
I'm going to say A minus. And my rationale for this is solid season, but you technically regressed because I think they lost a few more games this year, and you kind of got stuck in this rut of you can't win in the playoffs. And the other thing that brings you down to an A minus is you lost your head coach, which puts your future situation in flux.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel comfortable giving them an A minus. You can put A on the sheet if you want, but I think it's difficult to say what they get because are you comparing it to what they should be like accomplishing, right? Taking that next step, or what they continue to accomplish compared to like other
So my rating is just based off of win-loss record plus postseason performance.
Okay, so it's not based off of previous seasons. And yeah, I think an A minus is fair. Okay.
Yeah, I think so too. The next we have on the list, varsity men's soccer.
Sadly, not the same success as women's. You can see what was their final record.
6 wins, 8 losses, 2 ties.
I think C minus.
And no conference postseason appearance.
Did they not even make the tournament as a bottom seed?
That's what I meant. Yeah,
So they
that's what I
missed the
said.
tournament,
Yeah, they
then
missed
that's
the
got to be
tournament.
a D.
Okay.
Outright missing a tournament is a D, right? Because only like the bottom 2 teams miss it or whatever. Most teams make it, right? I don't know the exact numbers for men's soccer, but I give them a D.
Okay.
Reason. Club wins.
We'll put D plus.
Sure.
Okay.
I can accept that.
Well, if I remember correctly, because I would have to dig for it.
Right. Club teams are tricky to.
They're tricky to find, but I have them D tier. They lost, if I recall correctly, they did lose the vast majority of their games. They did win like a small handful.
I'll leave it at a D, but I'll give it a D minus because the fact that the women's soccer team is that good and the club team is that bad is
relative.
Really
relative to their.
Because you think some of the players that didn't make the women's soccer team would be on the club team performing well. But I guess that wasn't the case.
I don't know how that works. I do know the varsity and club men's soccer teams do occasionally play against each other on a semi-regular basis.
And you gave the club men's team a B, so that must be in the
they if I recall correctly, they did win a few more games than they lost. But I wasn't able to find any postseason stats.
Given that information, I'm going to give it a C. Or you could even give it a TBD/IDK, but I think a C is more accurate. Because we don't have that full reason. Okay, football you gave an F.
For obvious reasons?
Shocking, I'm going to disagree with this. They deserve a worse rating than this.
There isn't.
Oh, there is.
An F minus?
No, worse. Keep going down the alphabet. Keep going.
Well, no, that's not on the grade. That's not on the traditional
they're
grading
getting
scale.
A special tier that I call Z for 0.
Okay.
0 wins. I give them Z tier.
Well, I'm still gonna have. I have to put the football team F tier.
You got to put them in Z tier because I'm gonna have another team in F tier. So you got to put them a tier below them.
Well, I'll put it in parentheses. We'll mark it off.
I think it's 0 tier, but yes, on your official tier list, you can put F.
F.
I just think for the memes, 0 tier is...
For the memes,
I'm
yes.
a new trend. 0 tier for the football team. Okay. No debate for these two, I don't think. So
for men's basketball, they did fairly well in the regular season, and they were able to beat 2 ranked schools, Michigan Tech and Lake Superior State,
in the tournament.
In the GILAC tournament, which, by the way, Lake Superior State was able to get to the quarterfinals of the NCAA tournament. They did lose their first game in the NCAA tournament, so that's why I have them A tier.
I give them A minus because that loss was to Tech.
Okay, that's fair.
I give the women's basketball team an A plus because if I remember correctly, they won their first game. Right? Or did they lose? If I remember correctly, they won a game.
They did. They beat Hillsdale.
So I give them A plus.
Okay.
They were the favorites, so I'm not going to give them an S, but I will give them an A plus.
That's fair. They did fairly well.
No, that was a good season. They had
the
a
regular
good
season
performance.
It's just Grand Valley State
is a juggernaut.
Has a chokehold, like of epic proportions in the conference. Like their only losses were against Ashland and Ohio State. Which, by the way, I think Ohio State also did fairly well in their tournament. But anyway, varsity hockey.
You give a D.
I gave a D because they actually won a few more games after our initial.
You're gonna think I'm harsh here. However, I'm gonna put them in F tier.
I disagree,
and here's why: they had the worst season in NMU hockey history. And I think despite the circumstances, that still warrants an F. Give them an F plus if you want instead of an F minus. They're better than the football team. But you can't have the worst season in Northern history and not expect me to give you an F. Now, I understand there were circumstances that made it difficult to succeed with Grant leaving almost at the beginning of the season. You lost all your recruits. Yes, circumstances were tough. And we've talked about on this show before how I'm very optimistic for the future. However, if you look just at this past season and you exclude
5 wins, 27 losses.
Right, 5-27, easily NMU's worst season of all time.
Which according to the website, is a .176.
Right, that has to be an F.
It's real, yeah.
I understand why you give him a D. I'm as optimistic as you are.
minus,
It has
F
to be an
plus.
F. No, it's got to be an F.
Okay, I'm gonna give him an F plus
Fine, but it has to be F.
because better than the football team.
That's why they were 0 tier done.
No.
That's why I made that tier.
So, for club hockey for both men and women, if I recall correctly,
Yeah, they were both okay.
They were both okay. They had about the same amount of wins as losses. Pretty decent season.
Yeah, there's not much to say there. What about for volleyball, varsity?
Varsity volleyball. Looking on the website here, because I remember I had them B tier.
I thought they weren't that good. I thought they were kind of okay.
They were okay. They went 20 wins and 9 losses.
Right, but did they make the tournament? I don't think they did.
No, because they lost to, once again, Grand Valley State in the Gilead semifinals.
I will give them a B minus.
Okay. I think that's fair.
But B tier is fine.
Now, for this one's kind of interesting because when it comes to swimming and diving, it's
We're talking about team or individual?
team as a team because there's so many different events,
Right, but I mean, like,
but there's also so many different people.
Right, are we talking about, though, like, are we including individual swimmers, like, that do a race by themselves as part of team success? Or are we saying only races in which we do, like, relays and team events count
Both.
towards team success?
Both.
You're saying both?
Yes,
Okay, then I agree that both were S tier
because
there were. I don't think they did amazing in group events, but I know
we did above
solid.
average. We got to
Yeah.
nationals.
Right.
Even
But
in group events, we got to
individuals.
nationals,
I know we had some really good performances.
including some that got medals.
Also, I realized you're missing a team, so we're gonna add a team.
Oh, which one am I missing?
I don't see wrestling.
I forgot. Yeah, because I
Okay.
remember.
Well, we'll come back to it.
We'll come back to it.
Okay.
Okay.
Track and field B.
Yep.
I'll actually give them a B plus because if I'm not mistaken, they did pretty well at the GLIAC. What do you call it? Meet, I think is what they call it in track and field.
Some
And
of
I
the
believe several NMU records were broken.
Oh, I did not know that.
Either that or there were some podium finishes for sure. And I will give them a B plus either way for that reason.
I think that's fair.
Just
And-
like I'm going to give cross country a C plus because they were okay. No record breaking performances. They didn't really dominate as much as track and field did.
I have some friends in the
Yeah, they
cross
were okay.
country and track and field for different reasons, but well, one of them is a fan of my Halloween costume, and so that's kind of how I became friends with her. But
Okay.
also I go to their the Catholic Church potlucks every Wednesday. The CCM like right across the street, and so one of them is active. I member that goes there.
Okay.
Well, so yeah, I have a connection with
With
them.
those teams, so you got to be a little bit nicer to them.
Yes.
Okay, this one should be no debate at all, considering if you've ever walked on campus, you've probably run into somebody that skis from a Nordic country that's on that team.
But they also did really good. They went to nationals.
Oh, I know.
And some,
They're really good.
I think, some good, they got on the podium.
Right. We had some national placements, and we have a lot of people that come here for ski.
Yes, it's
So-
our other Division I program.
Right, and I know a lot of people from. I think there's 2 people I know from Norway that are on that team.
Nice.
So they are absolutely elite. As is the next team, club softball.
Well, let me just put it on the record. Alpine and Nordic skiing were putting S tier.
Right, they both get S
because
tier.
of a really, really good season and went to nationals
And
and
did well.
even got on the podium.
Right, so no debate there. Club softball,
Club
S.
softball S tier
They
because
did really well in
they-
their regular season and tournament,
exceptional.
right?
Yep, and they're regional winners.
Yep.
So for our esports programs,
I know you're excited about this one.
which when I make the tier list, I'm going to have
Maybe a
You're right.
separate section for these.
a different color. You know how I have a
Yeah,
color
yeah, yeah.
first varsity, like
You got to be careful though, because the coloration gets really hard to see.
I'm just gonna make it like a blue or
That's
purple or
fine.
something like that.
No, I just meant
Nothing
like
too
when
fancy.
you overlap stuff, the colors get weird. Especially
That's true.
But you gave
So-
Overwatch and Rainbow Six Siege both S because they are actively about to play in a national championship.
Yes. So for their regular season, I know our Overwatch team is undefeated. 7-0 in regular season, and so right now they're 10-0 because they
Three
They
playoff
have
games,
3 playoff games. They're in a national championship. They're going to play later tonight. As well as for Rainbow Six Siege, I believe they only lost 1 game and in the regular season. And like I said, they won 3 games in their divisional or their division group tournament. And so they're in the national tournament right now.
By the way, if they win, they should get a separate tier. I don't care that there's not a tier above S. You got to put them in W tier.
Well, no.
Or MC.
That's what S is for. S is to separate the A tier.
I think, though, if you win a national championship, you have to be above the other S teams. Because that is above and beyond.
S plus.
No, fine, if that's a separate tier.
Okay.
Give them an S plus, though. I'm going to manifest them winning a national championship next week. Or today.
Today, yes.
So, give an S plus right now. You could change it later.
For Overwatch or Rainbow Six Siege?
Both.
Okay.
I'm manifesting wins for them both.
And I'm gonna have to buy 2 more banners.
Oh, you're the one that buys them?
I'm the one that designed it and bought it. But I reverse engineered the design from the old volleyball banners from before the renovation.
That's fair. Do you get them funded by the club or do you have to buy them yourself?
It's like $30.
But does the club pay for it?
No, I do.
Damn, that's should get.
Well, yeah, but it's only like $30.
Sure, but
it's 1.5 by 2 feet in size.
I know, but it's a club expense. Anyway, you gave green team for Rocket League a B, yellow team an A, and white team, which sadly is the one you're in, an F. So tell me why. I don't know much about our Rocket League.
Okay, so we have 3 Rocket League teams. Our yellow team and green team were coincidentally put in the same group or same division as it was Grand Champ 2 and below. That's what it's called. And our green team lost in the first round of the tournament, but then the yellow team went to the semifinals. And then lost to Temple, I think, and then I think they won the whole thing. So that's why I have B tier, A tier, and I think during the regular season they were like above average. Okay.
So what happened to the white team?
So the white tier is basically the team of Misfit Toys, me including one of them. Basically just people. I think this team was created out of charity, to be honest, which I think is fine. I'm very thankful for the experience. We were put, it was called the Diamond 2 and below. Now, I'm Plat 2, Plat 3, which is a few rungs below Diamond. But my teammates were Silver and Gold. And which are much, much worse.
Oh, boy.
And so once teams figured out, this Dominic Skywalker guy, which is me, by the way, is like the only solid player and is mainly defensive. Once they just got around that, just start scoring goals like how Germany did against Brazil.
Oh yeah,
like that's how it ended up. We did not win a single set, and the only win was a forfeit. So I'm not even gonna count that.
Damn.
F tier.
Not much to say there. Wrestling, which you forgot about.
I completely forgot about. If you're on the wrestling team, please don't. Please don't come after me. I'm a really nice guy. I don't want to risk injury upon anybody. Don't hurt me. They are 4-4, according to the
okay, we can give them B
website.
that. Individually, there's been some success.
That is true.
As a team, not as much. So you can give them a B minus.
Okay, B minus.
Okay. Again, this is going to be a really short show because you've really only got some playoffs to talk about, a little bit of baseball, and then the segment I tabled from yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So the segment I tabled from yesterday, or not yesterday, last week, you can tell I'm tired, was the Nico Iamaleava, how we pronounce his last name.
He was from Tennessee, right?
Correct. Have you heard
and
about
then, so here's what I know. That he tried to act like a professional player and tried to create some leverage in regards to starting position or something with him being quarterback, and the coaches got mad and kicked him off the team. And then he got on the transfer portal, and I think is going to UCLA.
Okay, so
this is what I know.
You're on the right track.
Okay.
So He was a starting quarterback last year for Tennessee and got a pretty generous NIL deal because Tennessee's got some pretty generous boosters.
Yes.
However, when he went up against Ohio State in the playoffs, he just got destroyed.
Yes, I remember.
Yes, Ohio State's defense is good. As a Michigan fan, I can attest this. However, if Davis Warren can beat Ohio State, I don't want to hear an excuse as to why your generational quarterback can't do it.
Yeah.
So I doubt if any Tennessee fans are listening up in Upper Michigan, but if you are, no excuses there. Okay, so here's what happened. He wanted his NIL deal increased to over $4 million. Which, by the way, I think NIL should have been capped years ago. But
yes.
And by the way, $4 million is ridiculous for a quarterback that played mid all season. And it's one of the main reasons why Tennessee is not sitting with a national championship trophy right now. If he would have played better, I doubt it, but there might have been a chance. So he demands over $4 million. Tennessee says, back down or you're done. And he tries to call their bluff. He says, you're going to pay me or you're not going to have a quarterback, right? It's almost the beginning of the season.
Yep.
It's going to be hard to hit the transfer portal, And Tennessee says, we're not backing down. Have a good day. Takes his stuff down off the team. Which, by the way, kudos to Tennessee for doing this. And I think more teams should when players ask for out of this world
amount of
NIL
money.
deals. Yes. By the way, you already get a free education and free housing. You want like $100,000? Sure. But millions? No. But that's another topic that we've discussed before about why I have my reservations with massive NIL deals. But anyway, so he doesn't get the $4 million. He leaves thinking he's going to get more, and he settles for $2 million or less. I don't know if the actual number's been reported yet at UCLA, which is not only a massive downgrade in terms of talent, but he also loses several $1 million over these antics.
He's still getting something.
Sure,
that's his mindset, probably.
Right, but it shows what NIL has turned into. And with the NCAA versus House settlement, this is only going to get worse. So we are really entering an era now where big teams are going to be able to buy their way to the top. And everyone keeps talking about how NIL is a great equalizer, but it really isn't. Teams are already shutting down their programs because they can't afford this. Like, it's going to be a big problem.
There was a Division III school called Limestone
That
just out of the blue announced, oh yeah, at the end of the year we're done.
There's several programs that have done that because it's not financially feasible to pay these players.
But also I think just small schools in general are really struggling.
Right, but that's because they're not getting
Finlandia,
revenue share.
Northland College are two local examples.
Right, but when it comes to athletics, I know there's stuff on the school education side that's a problem with enrollment. When it comes to money, they don't really get a cut of the pie. And their players can transfer and leave for nothing. You get nothing if they leave. One solution that I've seen proposed, and I think it's a really good idea, is if you follow soccer at all, which I do, I'm wearing a Bayern Munich jersey right now. Like, I'm a big European soccer fan. And the MLS does it too, but to a lesser degree, obviously, because the MLS is really a major league. Mm-hmm. But, I should say major league compared to, like, Europe.
Yes.
But what teams
we'll get a competition with another Division I league is starting up that has promotion relegation. We'll talk about that later.
There is another National Soccer League, which will be exciting. But what's really interesting to me is the proposition was that you would pay schools a fee for their play. So they would be allowed to enter the portal, but then if they went to another school, you would have to negotiate with the existing school for a fee. Now, in soccer, you can say no to that fee, but I think in this proposed scenario, you would have to sell the player, but you could negotiate on numbers until you get to a semi-fair number. And I don't know if they'd have like an arbitrator from the NCAA or a lawyer, or if they would just do it between the schools.
Yeah.
Not quite sure how that would work. However, if, for example, let's think of a small school here in Division I. Well,
for
actually, no.
Sport?
We're going to do football here. Actually, let's use a Division II team that just lost some players. Okay, Ferris. They can pay a little bit. They're one of the better Division II teams. They're making quite a bit of revenue from winning national championships. But the team like U of M calls, or there were a couple other schools.
Or like some FCS schools.
Yeah, there were a couple of their guys.
FCS schools are going to be on their doorstep.
I think one of their quarterbacks went to Ole Miss. Okay, so like these bigger teams, right? You can give Ferris, say, $500,000, and then Ferris can go out and give that money and NIL revenue to other players to keep them there.
Okay.
And this fixes a problem because if you are paying to exchange players between teams,
The university should get a cut.
okay,
Right.
I mean, sure, you could do that too. I was going to say it shouldn't be. Well, I'd love it to go towards education, but let's be real here. None of that money ever will. They'd never allow it.
It depends, yeah.
It would never happen. The education system is just that.
Well, what if the university is a nonprofit?
They just wouldn't do it. They invest it back into it.
Well, hold that thought for a second, because for anyone who is just joining us, this is WUPX 91.5 FM HD1 Marquette. This is the Jack and Dom radio show. Jack, go right ahead. What were you saying?
I mean, it's complicated, but I just don't think the college athletics landscape would allow that to happen, despite both of us agreeing that that'd be the morally right thing to do when it's the NCAA efforts on the moral thing. But what you could do is when you get that $500,000, you could split that between your players, or if in the circumstance of like a school like you were talking about earlier that's on the brink of shutdown, if you did need or want to allocate that money towards academics, which like U of M won't do it if they ever get a player bought from them. But,
They already have a lot of
right. U of M won't do
boosters
that.
and alumni
But say
that
like
donate to this.
Ferris State or
Yeah.
another small school, Northern Michigan and a Tech might. We probably don't have players that are going to get bought by bigger schools, but in the circumstances that they did, for a school like the one that you mentioned earlier that's closing, that could make a big difference for your athletic program or a variety of other things. And you can split that amongst other programs too. So if you want to do revenue sharing for like some of the women's teams or like soccer or baseball or other sports, like you would have the resources to do that. And by doing this buying, selling thing, whether you want to say it's ethical or not, okay. But you would then be able to limit the scope of outside NIL deals and like massive $4 or $5 million NIL deals because you now have revenue splitting in between teams. So you'd be like, hey, if players are being bought and sold, we can now cap NIL at a certain rate because there's this like money flow. So it's an interesting concept. I don't know if it would work, but I think the bottom line is small teams are now going to have an even harder time than ever before.
Although I've heard for Ivy League, for example, because they've always focused on academics,
right?
But when it came to their athletic programs, they are NCAA Division I, and they were
Not
one
in
of the
all
leagues.
sports.
No, in all sports.
Well, they're FCS, but
That's Division
I know, but you got to clarify that they're not at the top level.
They're not FBS. Yeah,
Right.
correct. And they for football, just for football, their league prohibited their teams from participating in postseason until now. They recently announced that they're finally going to allow
Ivy League teams playing.
Ivy Leagues to play in the
Good.
FCS postseason tournament.
That's a good thing.
I think that's a good thing.
Now, here's my question: are they going to start NIL too?
They already have. Then, in fact,
Really? The Ivy Leagues have.
good player. Well, because
Because I've seen a lot of players
The
coming
Ivy-
from out of Ivy League schools, not here.
that's not what I've heard. What I've heard is a lot of players are using NIL to offset some or most of the costs to go to the school.
Well, to be fair, you're supposed to get a scholarship to play on those teams. That should have already happened.
They don't do athletic scholarships.
Okay, so that's how I.
So
think.
because NIL, they can use the name of Harvard, Yale, Columbia, Dartmouth
okay.
as some leverage for to get good NIL deals. They're using that to offset some of the costs for going to that school. It's $100,000 a year at Harvard.
Right. So I understand that.
Without
That
any
makes a lot more
scholarship
sense.
money.
But a lot of the more star players are still transferring out. A couple of them went to Michigan and Penn State, respectively.
Yeah.
Okay. Another.
Can I mention something about NIL? Because I want to bring up how this whole system was before NIL became a thing, and it was something sorry, the chair I just broke. Sorry, but I always lose my train of thought. That's
Well-
okay. Well, okay, all right. The system before NIL was a thing, right? Where
sit out a year.
but you not just sit out a year, but like if if let's say you go through a sport, you get no money, like, right, you get no insurance, you get no like health or anything, especially after you're done and you don't go professional.
Right. No, I agree that
You get no money. So like, I know like for a good opponent, I think that's how you say it, right?
Yeah.
Supporter of NIL was Charles Barkley. He always mentioned how, you know, he always mentioned like he was never allowed to have a job. He couldn't go out to eat with his girlfriend, like something like simple as that, right? In the old system, where, you know, if a college athlete got anything, like almost anything, they were like severely punished for it. It was always under the rug and all that underground.
No, I know what you mean.
And now the sins of that old system, now that's been broken down, I feel like in some spiritual sense, if you know what I mean, right? Like where the Pandora's box is open, where the chickens come home to roost. Right now, with all these changes, right? I feel like a part of it's like, you know, the NCAA deserves all of this NIL drama
because they does, but the rest of us don't. And the problem, okay, I have no problem with, I think insurance is fine. Like if you get hurt, you get X amount of dollars, whatever, yada, yada, yada. The problem
even if you don't get hurt, like recovery, especially in football, like that.
Right, but that's injury recovery.
Yeah, but that was never covered.
I'm
you
saying
never got any money after you graduated.
I'm agreeing with you there that any injury from football or future trauma or any of that should be covered. However, I think the difference here is that you could say, okay, 20,000 for injury relief, 100,000, arbitrary number, whatever, $1 million if it has to be that much. Like pick your number. But I don't think that they should be getting paid just because they're playing.
Yeah.
If you want to sign a contract that says you get X amount of dollars if there's complications later, you know, from injuries you sustained while playing football or your inability to get a job or whatever, like fine. But you're already getting free college. If you want to give them a small stipend, okay, totally understand.
I think that's what Ohio State does, is where each player gets a stipend.
No, they do.
And anything additional you have to earn on your own.
Well, they do win more. They paid over $30 million for their last.
Yeah, but for each player. Yeah, but for each player, I think it's like $20K or something.
Right, but they.
Right.
Yes, but that's okay. That's a little hypocritical for them, but fine. I would say too, like it's one of those things where, you know, giving them a little bit of spending money for college is fine, or like injury prevention is fine, but I don't think, you know, guys who come in as 5-stars should be getting millions. I don't think guys should be getting NIL deals. Like, where's my NIL deal for being a student?
Yeah. Do you know what? You know what this also reminds me of? Back in 2012. Do you know who was on the cover of Madden 12?
Is it RG3? I don't know.
He was voted in from. It was like the first time.
Manziel?
No, you won't know. Do you know who Peyton Hillis is?
Yes, I do.
From the Cleveland Browns.
What about him?
He was on the cover of Madden 12.
I know. Browns.
And he tried to. He was one of the. He tried to use leverage of him being on the cover of Madden to get more money. And like,
he was never the same again.
He was never the same again, especially the year after. Like his quality just dropped off because of the Madden curse.
To be fair, he was a pro player though, so that's a different.
I know, but it just
different conversation.
Especially with the Nico story, it just reminds me of that.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, I want to touch a little bit on some of the upcoming playoffs that have already started. So, starting with the NBA playoffs. I believe we predicted them, but I want to go through kind of what happened. In the NBA, we'll do the NHL, and then we can quickly, for like 30 seconds, touch on the new soccer league because we mentioned it before. Okay. So we're going to just kind of talk about the games that have already happened and kind of how those played out. So to start off the playoffs, the Pacers blew out the Bucks by 19 points. Bucks, of course, played without Dame, which is absolutely massive for them, being their second best player and one of their top scorers. And Kyle Kuzma had, you ready for the stat line? This is the guy they traded for, by the way, to help Giannis. Stat line of 22-0-0-0. That's 22 minutes.
I heard about that.
0
Yeah,
rebounds,
nothing.
0 assists, and 0 points.
What was he doing?
Their starting lineup, by the way, excluding Giannis, so the other 4 players, combined for 8 rebounds, 6 assists, and 14 points.
That's me on a good. That's me on a good day.
Right, that sounds like a stat line for 1 player, not 4 starters.
Ouch.
And one of their best players, this is according to my friend who's a Bucks fan, Pat Connaughton, got a whole 1 minute off the bench. So, and made a 3, by the way. So he got more points than Kyle Kuzma in 1 minute. But yeah, Pacers blow him out. I believe that game was in Indiana. So game 2 will be in Indiana as well. Okay, in overtime, the Nuggets beat the Clippers 112-110. That was a really thrilling game. Denver made a nice comeback to force overtime and eventually win. The Nuggets won because of 3 guys, Murray, Jokic, and Gordon. Clippers had a lot of production out of Leonard, Zubac, and Harden. Harden actually had a spectacular game, 11 assists, 32 points. But it wasn't enough because you can't stop Nikola Jokic. Almost had a triple-double again. 9 rebounds, 12
He's
assists,
the Joker,
29
right?
points.
That's what he's known as.
Yep. And Jamal Murray also almost had a triple-double with 9 rebounds, 7 assists, and 21 points. So, thrilling game there. I think it's going to be a close playoff series. I still think the Nuggets will win, like I said earlier on the show. But it'll certainly be intriguing to follow that series more closely. Then the one I watched live, the heartbreak of the Pistons. They were dominant through 3 quarters. I thought for sure we're going to bring a playoff win back to Detroit basketball, and instead, it was an unfortunate. We fell apart in the 4th quarter. I believe they went on like a 23-6 or 23-0 run. Og Anunoby, Karl Anthony Towns, and Jalen Brunson led the way for the Knicks with some really clutch play from Cam Payne. Whenever they seemingly needed the shot to get knocked down, he knocked it down. On the Pistons side of things, Tobias Harris was dominant. Tim Hardaway Jr. and Malik Beasley had nice games off the bench. Cade had a double-double, but a lot of that came late. The problem with the Pistons in this game was bench scoring other than Malik Beasley was a problem. Pistons looking to win game 2 before they return to Detroit.
Yeah.
Okay. The Timberwolves upset your Luka Doncic, LeBron James.
I know.
Winning by 22. Thrilled that they lost.
Doncic scored 37 points, though, in that game.
Right. Doncic with 37. James with 19. Austin Reeves with 16. Your next best player had 9. Your next best player had 5. So it was a 3-man show out there. Lakers get dominated. Naz Reid, Anthony Edwards, Julius Randle with the points on the Timberwolves side. Timberwolves looking to take the first 2 games in LA before they head back to Minnesota. I sure hope they win that. Okay. Then it was one of the most historic playoff games in NBA history. The Thunder win by 51. You heard that right. 51 points against the Grizzlies. Now, don't get me wrong. Grizzlies are a bad team. Thunder are a good team, okay? We all expected them to win. Marvin Bagley and John Morant had 17 for the Grizzlies. Bane had 9. Nobody else was anywhere near Huff had 8. Nobody else was anywhere near double figures. OKC, they pulled all their starters by the 4th quarter pretty much. Well, not necessarily, but they took their foot off the gas. Still won by 51.
Yeah, because I'm looking at the game flow here on ESPN.
Right.
The Thunder didn't score for the last 4 minutes of the 2nd quarter.
Well, they were also up 49 points through 3 quarters.
Yeah.
And then kind of took the foot off the gas. So, a demolition job there. Thunder are going to be a force to be reckoned with this year in the playoffs, and I think in upcoming seasons as well. Celtics beat the Magic comfortably. Paolo Banchero is one of the best games I have seen in a while. 36 points in 42 minutes, 11 rebounds. Franz Wagner had 23. Problem for the Magic was not a single other player got more than 7 points. And 2 guys cannot win it on their own. On the Celtics side, White had 30, Pritchard had 19, Tatum 17, Brown 16. So a well-rounded performance for the Celtics. They take a 1-0 lead in that series and will likely take a commanding 2-0 lead with Game 2 in Boston. Okay, Cavaliers Heat. Cavaliers win by 21 against the Heat. Heat, the first ever 10 seed to win in the playoff. round and make it in. Cavaliers relatively dominant. Adebayo 24, Hero 21, Mitchell 18. Cavaliers had 30 out of Mitchell, 27 out of Garland, 28 out of Ty Jerome. Pretty dominant performance for them. Shouldn't have much trouble dispatching the Heat in that series. Last but not least, the game I stayed up late to watch last night. Steph Curry made two of the greatest, most clutch threes I've ever seen. In other words, another day at the office for him.
Yes, I love that. I love that.
Twice he was going out of bounds with the shot clock about to hit 0 with a defender on him and made them both from 3. The man rarely misses. I saw more makes than misses for sure. 31 points for him, 25 for Butler, 14 for Podziemski. And despite the fact that they were kind of off their game, still win comfortably. If you are the Warriors, though, you are looking for your bench to get more points. You had 5 out of Santos, 0 out of Post, 0 out of Looney, 2 out of Buddy Hield, 7 out of Gary Payton. So that's 14 bench points. That's not going to do it against better competition. Moses Moody had just 7. Draymond, another one of his classic performances, just 4. So
how many rebounds did he get?
6. So
okay.
And he had 4 fouls. So you really need to get something going on around Butler and Curry. On the Rocket side of things, Sengun had 26. Nobody else had more than 11. Fred VanVleet went 2 for $1 million from three-point land, which was part of the problem. Green had one of the worst games of his career, their young star. Steven Adams came off the bench, got them 12 rebounds, kept them in the game. Sengun made a number of buckets with his 26 points, but it just wasn't enough. And the Warriors win that one. They look to win game 2 before heading back to Golden State. Just in case you're interested this evening, if you so choose, Pistons-Knicks game 2 is at 7:30. You will probably catch me tuning into that, so if you so choose, you're more than welcome to. And the Clippers and Nuggets at 10 p.m. So 2 good games tonight with Bucks, Pacers, Grizzlies, Thunder, and Timberwolves, Lakers tomorrow. So Dom, you might be able to catch LeBron and Luka at 10 p.m. tomorrow if you are interested. So a lot of fun stuff going around in the NBA playoffs, some really close, well-contested games. Speaking of fun, close, well-contested games, switching gears to the other playoffs. Last year, for whatever reason, I feel like the playoffs started later because I watched almost every game and I remember watching them at home. But maybe I just watched the later rounds, the semifinals or something like that. But I was really invested last year. It's what got me into hockey, even though the Red Wings have missed it both years. This year, I have not gotten the chance to tune in yet, but my adopted team, the Oilers, play tonight at 10 p.m. against a team coached by NMU alumni Jim Hiller. So some mixed feelings there for me. If the Kings win, I'm happy for our NMU alum. If the Oilers win, my favorite player wins. That's Leon Draisaitl, by the way. I'm German, so I would for all the German players, which is the Red Wings, the Senators, and the Oilers. Okay, so Winnipeg won 5-3 against the Blues. No surprise there. Connor Hellebuyck once again has a great game. For the Blues, goal scorers Kiru, Sundqvist, and Thomas. For the Jets, Connor, Schiffel, Anderson Dolan, Lowry, and Iafalou. Another excellent game from Connor Hellebuyck, despite not facing very many shots. The Avalanche in the Rantanen Derby, we can call it, as Rantanen demanded out of Colorado, was eventually traded and then traded again to the Stars. Avalanche creamed them 5-1. 2 goals for McKinnon, 1 for Coyle, 1 for Konen, 1 for Tays. On the Stars side, the sole goal comes from Roope Hintz. Tough game for Jake Ottinger. Meanwhile, Blackwood has turned into a stud for this team. Avalanche, one of the favorites and my pick for Stanley Cup winners. Hurricanes beat the Devils 4-1. Devils sole goal scorer Hischier. Markstrom had a great game, saving 41, but didn't get a lot of help from his team. 2 goals for Stankoven. Once again, he was traded to Carolina as a part of the Rantanen deal. So great game from him with the 2 goals. Chatfield with a 3rd, and Svechnikov with a 4th. In the last 2 games that happened yesterday, Maple Leafs, who by the way have not won a Stanley Cup since 1967. Every year they say it's their year. Maybe it is their year. They beat the Senators.
Like Cowboys.
Right. Only the Cowboys won in the 90s and the Maple Leafs won in the 60s.
Yeah.
So even worse. For the Senators, goals by Batherson and Grieg. Maple Leafs had 6. 1 from Marner, 1 from Nylander, 1 from Tavares, 1 from Ekman-Larsson, 1 from Nees, and 1 from Riley. An excellent goaltending from Stolarz. Meanwhile, Linus Ullmark, who was proclaimed the trade of the year, did not play up to par in that one. The Maple Leafs might win their first playoff series in my memory. Lastly, a controversially refereed game. Boldy, 2 goals for the Wild, with the Golden Knights win 4-2, another title favorite. Goal for Hertl and Dorofeyev, with Hoden getting 2. Not much action for Hill. He has a solid game and goal. Tonight's games, Capitals, Canadians. I hope the Capitals make a Stanley Cup. Give Ovechkin not only the goal record, but a cup would be amazing. They play the Canadians at 7. They are favored to win that one. Blues, Jets, game 2 at 7:30. Avalanche, Stars, game 2 at 9:30. And then at 10 p.m., if I can will myself to stay up that long.
I could stay up
No, not
to
till 10. Till 1 probably is when it will end. Kings Oilers will play, like I said earlier, it's my favorite player, Leon Draisaitl, taking on Coach Hiller, the NMU alumni, currently in charge of the LA Kings. Oilers have won that playoff series 3 seasons in a row.
My goodness, how many are you almost done?
I know. Okay. A lot of NHL action.
Yes.
Looks like the Kings are favored to win this one, but the Oilers won 4-3 3 years ago, then 4-2, then 4-1. So the joke is they're going to get swept this year, although I think the Kings are going to surprise some people. So lots happening in the NHL and NBA world. We'll let Dom get in a final word, and then we'll say so long until next year.
Yes. Well, not this. We're taking a break in the summer and then going to the fall.
Well, that's what I mean. Next year. Next fall.
School year. Well, so the United Soccer League, or the USL, is going to be starting up a Division I league, but also restructuring their other Division II and Division III leagues by introducing promotion and relegation,
which is absolutely great for American soccer.
It is
long overdue. It really will help, I think, the U.S. develop more talent, not only for our national team, but to export to Europe. It's going to be really interesting to see, though, if the USL or MLS wins out.
Because there is the U.S. Open Cup, where all the teams
and
are all.
The USL plays quite well in that cup typically, and does often beat MLS teams, despite MLS having a lot more funding and support. So this will be an interesting development. Detroit, like you said, will probably be in the USL Division I. They're one of the best teams in the USL. I believe they are going to the USL Finals, if I'm not mistaken, this year after a comeback win. So it'll be an interesting development over the next decade or two to see kind of what happens after the MLS rose from the ashes of. I don't actually know what the league before the MLS was called.
There really wasn't one.
There kind of was, but then the MLS rebuilt itself from those ashes. So something interesting to watch within the next decade, 2 or 3, to see if the U.S. can develop a better pathway for Americans and also people abroad to get a more developmental experience. The MLS or USL, whoever wins, will always be a developmental league. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. All right, any final thoughts to cap off our...
Well, what I was going to say before you cut me off, you're okay. Because I know one of the big concerns for a lot of USL teams, especially in Division II, Division III, is like, let's say Detroit, for example. What if someone starts up a franchise in Detroit for the MLS? What happens to the Detroit team that's already there? Because they'll have to eventually compete with fans, money, and TV deals with the MLS team that will already have a advantage over the USL team. And so now that the USL is going to be introducing this promotion relegation system with the Division I league, that it can better protect teams if there is already an MLS team, for Los Angeles, Dallas, Atlanta, New York, et cetera, et cetera. And also, it would be nice to have, if you have your soccer team in your town and they get promoted, that's awesome.
Absolutely.
That was awesome. Like seeing like for Detroit having a professional, like Division I professional soccer team, and then they get and there's that promotion relegation involvement. Yeah, that's awesome. I think the only concern that I've heard with soccer in the United States compared to other leagues in other countries, especially in Europe, is travel, because the United States is much larger. I think that's like the only concern that some smaller clubs have. But I believe the system we set up where if you get promoted, you get rewarded some money to help compensate for that, like it is in other countries.
That I think is going to be a really exciting opportunity, and we will see how that progresses. I know MLS has done a lot of expansion lately and seems to be done. So the USL is a unique opportunity to target cities like Detroit that have been searching for an MLS team and have not been able to get one. So
they can just create one on their own.
Right, exactly. Or use the ones they already have, like Detroit.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Exciting things on the horizon in the soccer world. Really, all of Detroit sports right now, except for maybe the Red Wings, exciting things on the horizon. So looking forward to seeing how things go. When we come back, it's going to be almost football season. I'm optimistic for Michigan. Bryce Underwood will hopefully.
I'm not optimistic for Northern, but we'll go from there.
Yeah, I think you have a little bit of sense of optimism for MSU.
A little bit, yeah.
If you keep your expectations low, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
No, I'm going to raise my expectations a little bit.
We're going to beat Michigan talk.
No, we're going to beat Michigan
more next fall. That being said, it's been another wonderful semester, wonderful year with you.
Yes, it has.
Any closing thoughts before we head out this evening?
Well, everyone drink water, get some sleep. Finish off this regular week of classes, and
do well on your finals.
Luck, yes, good luck on finals. I might be working for a TV station this summer as part of like an internship / job. Because I'm not taking any classes in the summer, but I need an internship credit, so I'm going to be try doing that. If you know where Big B is in Taco Bell, like the area of Marquette, there's a TV station here that I think that might be the one I'd be working at.
That's exciting. So congratulations to you. Hopefully we have a good summer, and everybody taking finals in the next week or doing final projects. Best of luck to you. Have a great summer, everybody, and we will see you next fall.
Yep, and we'll resume your regularly scheduled weird music that sometimes plays on here on WPX 91.5 FM H1 Marquette. This is the Jack and Dom Radio Show. See you in the fall.